Hello! And welcome on your live afternoon game drive. My name is James Henry and you are with WildEarthTV. Now, you're on a live game drive. I'm not in fact a clown, I'm just behaving slightly like one at the moment. I was trying to get into that termite mound behind us that you can see there. Can you see it, Jean-Ray? Can you see it now? Can you see it now? Right. I was trying to get into that termite mound there and make like a warthog, but I became nervous of snakes, and so I just hid behind it because we didn't have much time for me to excavate further. Anyway, here we are. We are sitting on Arathusa currently, and for those of you who don't know, Arathusa is a 600-hectare portion of area that we traverse. We also traverse 900 hectares to the east of us, called Djuma, and that little section of land is in a much greater area called the Sabi Sands of 60,000 hectares, which in turn falls into a much greater area of the Greater Kruger National Park, which is 2.2 million hectares, which in turn falls into the Greater Limpopo Transfrontier Park. Now, this morning I was asked how many lions there are left in this area, and I couldn't answer. And apparently, as of 2012, which is the latest figures I could find, there were about 2,300 lions in the area. We don't think that they've changed substantially since then. It's a pretty healthy population of lions, and so there we go. That's how many lions there are in the area. Just to let you know, the Greater Limpopo Transfrontier Park does in fact extend into Mozambique and the spiny bone apple, and it is spiny and very painful on the back of my small legs. Like I say, I'm James Henry, and on camera today we have got the inimitable Jean-Ray, who's got a bandana. Where's your bandana from, Jean-Ray?
The shops.
The shops, yes. Well, it's very fashionable. Jean-Ray is a very fashionable fellow, and on the other vehicle we have got Scott and Brian, who are currently trying to track down the Nkahuma Pride, a pride of 4 females, 2 sub-adult females, and 1 young male, who provide the bulk of our lion viewing and are in a state of turmoil, which I'm sure Scott will tell you about later on. So, and in the final control, lest I forget, we have 3 ladies, Louise on Director 1, Tara Dale sitting next to her, and D2, Director 2, the inimitable Nikki Alston, and of course Eugene in his little white bucky, driving around trying to make sure that we don't lose any signal like we have the last 2 drives. Difficult situation Eugene finds himself in. This weather does play havoc with our signal. Anyway, here we are, and hopefully live for the rest of the drive. My plan this afternoon, and therefore your plan, unless you tell me otherwise, and you can tell me otherwise if you like on Twitter, #SafariLive, or questions@wildearth.tv. If you're on the email, you're welcome to tell me what you think the plan should be. Jean-Ray, quickly look over here. There is a little fork-tailed drongo. Anything can happen out here. And our plan wasn't necessarily to come and find a fork-tailed drongo. The plan is to come and find a little male leopard that we saw here today called Sindile. Well, he was called Sindile. He's now called Madiba. And so that's who we've come to find. His mother, Shadow, provides a huge amount of leopard viewing for us. And that is the fork-tailed drongo, who has been attracted, I think, by the fact that this vehicle is off-road and probably disturbed a few insects, and that's what the drongo is looking to try and eat. What a wonderful sighting. So like I say, fully interactive safari. We'll be with you for the next 3 hours, and please feel free to send your comments and questions. We love to hear from you. #SafariLive if you're tweeting like that drongo does sometimes, or questions@wildearth.tv if you prefer the longer form. Right, I think that's it for the drongo. We're going to reverse out here and then drive down towards the airstrip at Arathusa and see if we can't pick up on young Madiba. I'm hoping that he'll be there. I'm also hoping there won't be too many other cars there, because we are not alone on this wilderness. And Christine, thank you for you. Apparently you were waiting for me to poke my head out of that hole. I did think about it, but I don't think even I am small enough to fit in that hole, and so I just had to make a rushed plan to hide behind the termite mound. Initially, Jeandre wanted me up a marula tree, and I misunderstood him when I stopped the car. He grossly overestimated my climbing skills. Little clearing here. And Elizabeth, I'm very pleased that you found me slightly amusing. I'm sorry, Jeandre, that was very slow of me. A yellow-billed hornbill. Thank you, Elizabeth. I do try my best. So we're not far from where we saw him this morning, but like I say, there are lots of people around, so I will just have to get hold of them on the radio when we get a bit closer, and then we can, I'm sure during the course of the afternoon we'll be able to get in there if he's been found again. Otherwise we'll find him ourselves. The weather is probably still sitting at around, I'd say, a maximum of 16 degrees. So not warm at all, and the wind is blustery, and apparently this front that you can see over the top of us is going to last for the next 3 or 4 days. Jeandre also says to me that he's checked the long-term forecast and that it's going to rain on Saturday. I am suspicious of that, but we'll see. Maybe 4 or 5 millimeters. There's a big bird up there, Jeandre. There are 2 big birds. I think those are African hawk eagles. Drive very slowly up. I think they're African hawk eagles, and they like to hunt ground-dwelling birds like guinea fowl and francolin. They hunt in pairs. Exactly what they are. Stop a little as well. I'm not going to start the engine again. Let's see how close Jigger will roll, because they will fly when we go under them. Beautiful African hawk eagles. And you can hear the squirrels. I'm not sure if you can hear them, but there's some squirrels there alarm calling at them. Very upset. They will eat squirrels as well, of course. Just go a little bit closer. Oh, they're going to fly. You hear the squirrels. Very cross. And they don't pose a huge danger to a squirrel. I mean, I don't think that they kill many squirrels, but the squirrel will certainly recognize them as a predator. Alright, they're going to fly now. So get ready with your screen grab. and see if you can't catch them with their magnificent wingspan fully extended. Here we go. I think they're going to fly. They may just put a dropping or two on our heads as we go underneath. There we go. Wonderful birds. They're sitting just up ahead in front of us. See if we can't get next to them. See, they won't want to fly in weather like this. It's really not great for a big heavy bird to fly in. No, there we go. And as they fly, you can hear different birds alarm calling as they fly over them, and they notice these voracious aerial predators flipping past them. I don't think they're in much danger today though. Normally how they hunt is one of them will hunt from above and sort of attract the attentions of the prey, and the other one will come in from low down and bam. Oh dear, my ear seems to have come out. Jean-Ray, if I'm being hailed, let me know. Must be able to multitask as a presenter. Go, back in. Pardon. I'm just going to get an update on the radio now and see how far away, or if we're able to go in there. Afternoon stations, I'm nearing that position from this morning, struggling with the radio. Can I have a vehicle update from the Madiba sighting? Copy, thanks. Will you keep me posted? I'm on my way there. Okay. I copied that, thank you. We'll just keep me posted and I'll take first. Stand by. Great stuff, thanks a lot. Okay, so the update is that he's still in the same place as he was this morning. There are 3 people there, I'm afraid, but they will move out for us eventually, and we will then go in and spend some time with magnificent Sandile. In the meantime, we will view these impala that Jean-Dre has cleverly spotted. Despite his fact that his eye is welded to the camera, he is still spotting wildlife. Well done, Jean-Dre. So we've got some rather startled looking impala sitting in the woodland here, wondering what on earth we could possibly have stopped for. And you can see they have an unusual colour on them for this time of the day. Normally by now the fur on their backs is firmly attached or firmly flattened to allow for sort of more effective heat exchange. And at the moment what they're trying desperately to do is to stay warm. And so they fluff up their hair, and that traps more air underneath it, and they stay a bit warmer. Many of these females will now be pregnant and starting to show. So although you might see the hips on some of them from the nutritional distress that they will experience inevitably at this time of year, you will see that their bellies on many of the females are quite full, and they seem to be swelling day by day. They will of course give birth around about the end of November in this area, so in just over 2.5 months' time. So they've been pregnant for almost 5 months now. Very graceful, beautiful antelope. Hugely underrated, I feel. We're just going to sneak slightly forward, if that's all right, Jean-Jacques. Go. And those birds you can hear, the zip, 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 zip. Those are the oxpeckers that clean off the ectoparasites that like to live on the impala, sucking out their blood and transferring diseases to them. Parasites and disease are the greatest threat for any animal, including us, and the incredible lengths to which our bodies have evolved to deal with parasites, some of which we don't even know about, and various infections and things, quite astonishing. The immune systems that mammals and many other animals, of course, have developed are just astonishing. Just give you a sense of the atmosphere that we've got going here. It is windy. It's not. It's chilly. It's sort of 16 or 17 degrees Celsius, I think, which is probably around 57 to 60 degrees Fahrenheit. So not warm, and a chilly breeze with this front that's blowing over. That smell of petrichor, see, I remembered, Jean-Andre, that smell of petrichor from this morning, which is the smell that comes off the earth after the rains. Thank you, Jess, for telling me that. The smell of petrichor was dissipated, and now there's just a bit of sort of dustiness in the air from the wind. And every so often you get the subtle smell of a little bit of aniseed maybe, or some sage, and also, if you're really lucky, if you go past a flowering knobthorn, you get a little bit of a smell, sweet smell from the knobthorn trees, but very subtle. Impala seems to have a shiner. Yeah, that one just stuck its head up. It's got a very dark stripe under her eye. And Lady Macbeth, you're absolutely correct. Just because impala are common, it doesn't mean we shouldn't spend some time enjoying them. And they are, you're absolutely right, they are stunning. They're elegant. They have the most clever strategy for survival. Their breeding strategy is such that they all will deliver their lambs within 2 weeks of each other, which is just amazing when you consider it. In the Kruger Park, they all mate during the dark phase of the moon in May. Let me just say that again. They all mate during the dark phase of the moon in May. So because of that sort of environmental trigger that they all respond to, what happens is that they all birth their lambs within 2 weeks of each other. And what that does, of course, is it floods the market with little babies. And those little babies are then, I'm afraid 50% of them get end up on the dinner table, if you like, over the course of the first year. But then after that, you can see from the abundance of impala, they do really, really well. Now we've got an interesting question why we follow this herd of some pregnant females, some males, a mixed herd. Lisa, you'd like to know if the condition of the adult makes a difference to the fetus, and I passed you right behind you, sorry. Lisa, it absolutely makes a huge difference, as does the condition of the bush. But it has given rise to this ridiculous notion, and it is ridiculous, that an impala is able to hold back giving birth for some months until conditions are favorable. And that is definitely not the case. So yes, of course, just like with human beings, if the mother's nutritional status is not a tip-top condition, then obviously it will affect the fetus. But they're pretty good at dealing with the dry season. They're able to browse and graze, and so they probably deal with the dry season better than most, especially if there's pumped water around, which of course in the Sabi Sands you can't go more than 2 kilometers without finding a waterhole of some sort. So this is an ideal habitat for impala. Now, here's an interesting one that I posed before, and I haven't got an answer to it, and I don't think anybody on the Twitterverse gave me an answer. Why do you think an impala is brown? Is that rich chestnut color, beautiful chestnut color, when it's clearly very obvious, I think, in that grey vegetation? If the vegetation was green and thick, they could just hide behind it. But in that vegetation where they are now, there's no camouflage advantage to being that rich chestnut brown color. Waterbuck, you can hardly see moving through that area. You can see when zebra move through an area like that, it does play tricks with your eyes, so you can kind of understand the stripes. Duiker are also perfectly invisible in there. Kudu also to a certain extent because of their stripes and their slightly darker grey color. Nyala, same thing because of their stripes. But although Nyala also tend to have the females certainly tend to be that rich chestnut color, and I don't know why. And I wonder if anybody has any plausible answers to that one. Ginny, you say that you've noticed that the impala are not flicking their tails. Ginny, I think some of them certainly are. But remember that the tail is they may be doing it less than normal, but remember that the tail is a fly swatter more than anything else, and on a cold day like this there are simply fewer flies, and so the necessity to wag your tail and try and flick the flies off your bottom becomes that much less. So if you watch them, you will see the odd one flicking its tail, but Jenny definitely less than normal, and I'm sure that's because there's simply not a lot of flies around. Flies, of course, are totally ectothermic, which means they derive their heat from the atmosphere, and they don't store it like we do or like impala do. And so when it's chilly and windy like this, they struggle to get off the ground. Oh, I see. Right. Now, Donna, in South Carolina, you make a very good point, of course, that the rangers here love to have a first impala spotting competition. So come the end of November, we'll all be scouring the land for the first lamb. And it's always a good thing to be the first one to see. Just listening a little bit to the radio to make sure that I don't miss out on magnificent Madiba. But so far, it all is quiet. Right, shall we drive slowly along, Gendre, or would you like to spend further time with the impala? You say we can go. Wonderful. Thank you very much for that. a really nice impala sighting. Shall forge ahead and see what else we can find. Looking for signs of spring, and there are some signs of spring right there. In the marula tree there, you can see it sprouted new leaves. Wonderful. It's always exciting to see the first signs. I think there are a few marula trees that are in leaf or starting to go into leaf. And while we're looking at the leaf there and talking about spring, and we were chatting about impalas and their lambs, Marjorie, you wanted to know how old a female impala is when she first conceives. Marjorie, they're sexually mature by about 2.5 years. So what you probably find is that in their 3rd year, they will give birth. So if they're born in November, come November 2 years later, they'll be coming into sort of their first estrus by that May. So 2.5 years, they can probably breed. And they can possibly breed just about every year for some of them. If conditions are correct, that's what will happen. Right. Just move slowly down the road. He'll tell you what he's doing. I know he's tracking the lions, but I don't know what's happened with that. And so we'll hop across to him, and I'll see you just now, hopefully with a little spotted cat.
Hello everyone, and welcome on board the hunt down for the Nkahuma Pride. We are searching for them. They've moved from where they are this morning, and Brian and myself have been trying to work out where they've gone. It looks like they've headed south towards Treehouse Waterhole, maybe to come and quench their thirst, and we didn't have time to follow up on foot all of their footprints, but their tracks certainly did come south from where we had them this morning. For those of you who weren't with us, they had been, well, we managed to find them, and we could see that they had made a kill. They were covered in blood, and probably an impala. They weren't too full-bellied, something probably quite small. And it was only after about 2 hours of trying to track them, with a lot of help from Aubrey, one of the other guides. So it looks like we have got our work cut out for us again this afternoon. If some of you may be joining for the first time, my name is Scott, and it's wonderful to have you on board. And there's not only me on this vehicle, I've got Brian on camera. So like I say, we think the lions are somewhere out to our left. They have been approaching, according to their tracks, somewhere towards Treehouse Dam. And maybe you guys can help us and search this area, even though the bush is quite open at the moment and there's not much vegetation. The lion's camouflage helps them to blend in very well. And maybe you guys will be able to see something that Brian and myself have overlooked. Nothing much to see there, I don't think. Well, hang on. There we go. What's that? Awesome! You can faintly see a lion there, and they must have just arrived. I thought I saw one walking through the shot. It looks like one's sitting there. So let's go and take a closer look. Would you believe it? Thankfully, after spending so much time this morning, I thought we were going to have the same problem this afternoon. But it turns out that luck is on our side. Phew! What a relief. And the good news is it looks like one or two of them may be on the move. And typically we spend a lot of time with these animals sleeping, so it'll be great to actually spend some time with them moving around and hopefully, if we're lucky, getting to see them hunting. And because there's a waterhole here, there's a strong chance that there may be some animals coming down to drink, so it's a perfect spot for them to try and set up an ambush. Just going to try and loop right ahead of them. They are just off to our left now. And some of them appear to be looking very intently down in this direction. I'm not sure what they could possibly see. Oh, great, there's one right here. They're looking off very intently down to our right. Wonderful. Now, one thing I didn't mention about this morning is that we only saw 6 members of this pride, which means one was missing. It may have just been lying up nearby. Hard to tell though, and who knows, possibly one of them has been caught out by one of the Birmingham boys who's up in Buffelshoek, which is where these lion were last. Junior was present, so it's just one of the lioness that's missing. And it looks like she still has a pink tinge of blood on her coat from her kill this morning. Look at her body language. What has she seen out there? Oh, it's an impala. It's very, very far off, but there is an impala in the distance, and look at those beady eyes. Very, very focused. Look at this. This is what we want to see. And something that we get to see very rarely. Lions on the hunt. And the wind is blowing straight from the impala towards the lion. So the wind is in the lion's favor. Welcome back, everyone, and thankfully you haven't missed anything. And I'm just going to ask Brian to pan across and show you what's happening here. There's a multitude of game coming down to the dam, mainly impala. Just to give you an idea of where they are, it's just down behind us there. You can see a wildebeest and lots of impala running down to drink. Sadly though, the lions aren't really in the best spot at the moment, and they've got a lot of work to do in order to get into the right position to ambush this prey. At least you've got an idea of where the dam is and where the prey is, and now you know where the lion are. Now, even though lion are incredibly good hunters, they're incredibly fast and powerful, their prey have evolved and adapted over many, many years to escape being caught by them. So it's not easy business, and the prey will also be on especially high alert today because it's windy. And in these windy conditions, prey animals will be scared. They cannot hear predators approaching, even visually, because plants are blowing in the wind, it can disguise the predator's approach. Look at how poised and focused she is. Now there's only two lionesses that are kind of up front. Look at this. I think she's going to make a hash of this. See what happens. Welcome back, and apologies for the signal issues. But you haven't missed anything, and let's just keep our hopes up here. Like I said, most of the pride is quite far back, and sadly aren't really in a position to encompass this prey. But there still is a chance. Something may go well for the Nkuhumas, but I must say I feel that little one down there, I didn't even see her. Now they only start to like. Welcome back, everyone, and one lioness that I actually didn't see came charging forward. It was a terrible maneuver on her part, and she's blown it for the rest of the pride, and now you will be able to, once I've stopped, see some impala laughing at her. So you didn't miss anything, and I'm just going to try and find a good spot to stop where you can see both the impala and the lioness. The lioness is slinking back to the rest of the pride, and most of the impala have disappeared, but you may be able to hear the snorting alarm calls of the impala. And they're somewhere in that bush, shouting their thoughts back to the lioness that came charging, and she had absolutely no chance. She came from so far away in the complete open, possibly a youngster. But wasn't that exciting, and just great to see the body language and intensity of that one lioness's eyes when she locked focus on those impala for the first time. Yeah, we might be able to get you a visual of these impala alarming. And off they go. Now, that's fairly normal occurrence, and in terms of predators being able to catch their prey, they only succeed about 10 to 20% of all of their hunts. So it's no major surprise, and I'm glad we just got to at least see that initial intense action of the lioness stalking along the ground a little bit with those beady eyes of her locked on the targets. lost track of which was the lioness that blew the hunt for everyone, but it could have been this one, and possibly one of the younger ones who didn't get to feed on much of last night's very small kill that they made. Junior evidently got most of it, as he had the fullest belly this morning. And you can see her kind of flicking her tail upwards there. She was doing the same thing, or at least the lioness who blew the hunt was doing the very same thing as she walked off, flicking her tail in frustration. Well, good prospects, and the amount of time we usually spend with these animals sleeping is very lopsided, and we don't get to see much hunting action or even them moving around during the day. So very, very happy that we are in this scenario, and I'm sure we are going to get to see them try hunting again. There's a herd of buffalo bulls that often come and drink at this water, or they have been over the last few days, and within that herd of buffalo there's some really old and weak members that may provide the perfect prey for this pride. I think after all the excitement of that potential hunt, most of the pride is going to regroup with the other members who weren't as actively involved. So what we're going to do is also just reposition and get you a little bit closer to the action. Squeeze tight, everyone. There's thorns on the left and the tree on the right we don't have to worry about too much, but there's also some stuff above us. Oh. Good, everyone through. Very good. Really would like to see all 7 of them here. Maybe we just missed one of the animals this morning, one of the pride members. But it's not looking too promising, and I wonder what's happened to her. You can just see Junior over my shoulder here, and he's a little bit distant from the rest of the pride, not looking too happy, but take a closer look, and he's got a very funny expression on his face. Maybe he's not enjoying this cold weather. Shame. Still a tinge of pink on his coat, but certainly not as much as this morning. And they probably finished their kill sometime just before we managed to find them. And that's why so many of them were still covered in blood. But already now they look to be a lot cleaner. So he's a young male within the pride, and there were 6 females, 6 lioness last time this pride was seen, but only 5 this morning. The youngest of which just lay down on the top right, and then there's 2 older lioness, and 2 in between. And as you can see, a lot of them are taking this time to groom themselves. And for those of you who were watching the sunrise safari, you'll notice they're already looking a lot cleaner than then. Last station, I'm getting a lot of static through from you. Can't copy anything. So the radio seems to be giving us a hard time at the moment. All the tech stuff has been really tricky over the last few days. And poor old Eugene, our tech wizard, has been running around frantically all day solving one problem, which often leads to, it's literally as he finishes one problem another one pops up. So apologies for that, but we are doing our best to try and resolve all these issues. And at least we've got this wonderful sighting to enjoy in the meantime, regardless of all the tech issues. Well, I certainly couldn't have asked for a better start to the safari on this vehicle this afternoon, and it sounds like you had a great start with James. I'm quite jealous you got to see the two African hawk eagles. It's been quite some time that since I've seen them, and now James has found something else that I'm quite jealous about. So enjoy, and you're going to hop onto his vehicle. We're not going to go anywhere. We're going to stay with this pride of lion, and we'll be sure to call you if any further action unfolds.
Well, everybody, welcome back to Djuma, and the most important part of Djuma at the moment is that it is parked next to a termite mound on which you can see a young male leopard aged roughly 1 year. He is exposing his rather spectacularly furry belly, and that's because he's full. It looks to me like he ate something last night. I know his mother was around yesterday, and so perhaps she got him something, although, as I said this morning, he has become something of an accomplished hunter in his own right. He has not moved since this morning. Well, I mean, he's rolled over a few times, but he certainly hasn't done much else. But it is such a privilege to spend time around him. He's still got a very young face compared with the adult male leopard that we see around here. And as most cats like to do, he is doing not a great deal, especially with a belly that large and full of meat. Now remember, one of the reasons that cats do have to sleep as much as they do is because they digest a huge amount of protein. Now, protein is expensive for the body to digest. It's not easy. And it also is not particularly rich in energy. So to process it, A, and B, then to derive energy from it is not easy. And so the body of these cats needs to rest as much as they do. They don't do it just because they're lazy. Look at him rubbing his little face there. He looks just like a house cat. So much about his activities do make you want to go over there and cuddle him a little, but I assure you that would be an extremely poor idea. See his beautiful little pink nose. Just get Rondre to go in on his little nose. Now the leopard's nose, of course, is different from that of a lion. It's used for the same thing, of course, that is to smell, and also good for aging them in lions, not so good in leopards.
Leopards, that he will probably have a pink nose for the rest of his days. Some of them are born with black noses. Those are the two general nose colors in leopards, but lions, of course, are all born with pink noses, and they will eventually, by age 6, those noses will turn black. But a leopard, that is very different. Now, we had a discussion earlier about the impala and their color and why they are the color that they are. Jean-Andre and I had a debate amongst ourselves. We didn't really come up with a particularly robust theory, I don't feel. But the other, while we're looking at this leopard, look at the color that he's got on his belly. It's extremely obvious. And you tell me why you think it is that a leopard has got white and black on his belly, when those are the two most obvious colors that you can find out here. Why would he have such an obviously colored belly? The other interesting thing here is how a leopard will not sleep like a lion does. I know you've been enjoying a wonderful lion sighting with Scott, a failed hunter, I believe. Just seeing lions on the hunt is a tremendous privilege and great fun. But you will notice, I'm sure, very shortly that those lions will go to sleep and do pretty much what Madiba is doing now. And the interesting thing, though, is that when he sleeps, he doesn't sleep like a lion does. A lion will sleep like the dead. These leopards are always up. So every so often he will lift his head up, look around, put his head down. If he hears a disturbance in the grass, he'll open his eyes and look. They do not sleep with the same soundness that lions do. And the reason for that is clearly because they don't have nearly the same amount of confidence, and the threats that face them are obviously that much more, because they're just smaller, they don't live in groups, and they fall pretty close to the bottom of the major predator hierarchy here. So, while we talk about the predator hierarchy here, I think it's quite interesting because we do see 3 of the major members of that predator hierarchy. There are 5 major predators out here: lions, hyenas, wild dogs, leopards, and cheetahs. We see all of them from time to time, but the main ones we see are the ones that we've seen today, all 3 of them that we've seen today. We had lions this morning, we had a spectacular hyena sighting with Scott this morning, and of course we had young Madiba sitting over there on the termite mound. Now, the predator hierarchy goes as follows. It goes lions, then hyenas, then wild dogs, then leopards, then cheetahs. And leopard and cheetah tend to fall sort of below the rest by quite a margin. Lions well above the top, although in areas where there are lots of hyenas, there will be some kind of conflict over who sits in the number 1 position. And the purpose or the reasons for these are pretty clear and pretty obvious once you think about them. Lions are the biggest, obviously. That's a huge predicator of your hierarchy out here. In fact, it's the major one. Then they live in groups, so they can take a risk. Now, that group structure means that they can risk being physically hurt, which something like a leopard and a cheetah cannot. If they get injured, they don't eat again, and then they die, obviously, because none of us can survive without eating, and except maybe some yogis in India. But other than them, no one can survive without eating. So lions and hyena, bigger, live in groups, and they will slightly be dominant over wild dogs, which also live in groups, which means they can take the odd risk. The leopards and cheetahs, they can't take risks. And I did see, between the 2 of them, I saw some footage the other day that came out of Ngala, where I used to work, just up the road, and it was footage of a leopard, male leopard, having killed a cheetah, took it up a tree and ate it. So cheetah are well at the bottom of the hierarchy, and leopard just off the bottom. I think it's quite interesting to see how they all fit in, and that's the reason that a leopard will never sleep as soundly as a lion will. And as I say that, of course, he's fallen so fast asleep he hasn't had a twitch in the last 3 minutes. I think eventually he will wake up and hopefully do something exciting. He's been so confiding over the last little while. I also think it's quite interesting that on a day like today, he's not lying up in thick bush. He's exposed himself here in this kind of blustery day. It's cold, it's not very nice out, but he's exposed himself on the top of this termite mound, and I find that quite strange. I don't know why he wouldn't have gone to some thick bush. But he does love termite mounds, as does his mother. They both love termite mounds very much. A very nice little question from Gracie, aged 8 in Ohio. Gracie, do I think his paws are getting bigger? Gracie, his paws are definitely getting bigger. Just like your feet are getting bigger, so his paws are getting bigger. He's bigger than his mum now, you know, and when we look at his feet, his tracks on the road, you can see that they're a bit bigger than his mum's now, whereas about 2 months ago they were definitely smaller. So his feet are definitely getting bigger.
Where is she? Where? I think we can pop her. As we landed there. No, I'm going to book in on punch. There won't be enough jumbo now.
Hi Lindsay in Houston. Jandre's going to zoom in on his sort of midriff, if you like, and that's going to answer your question for you. You've asked, has he eaten recently? Lindsay, I'd say he's absolutely eaten very recently. I think probably last night. And as far as I understand it, he and Shadow had a kill taken from them by some nefarious and pilfering hyenas. But you can see, Lindsay, by his belly that he has definitely eaten. I don't know what it was. I think it was probably a duiker or an impala or something like that, and that was stolen from them. Look at his belly now. There you go, Lindsay. You can see that he's eaten very well indeed, and I think that's also why he's not moving around too much now. Totally and utterly relaxed. Okay, so we've got a couple of answers to why that belly is so white. Josh, Debbie, and Pass, a couple of different answers. One being that, Josh, I think you said it's white so that perhaps the cubs can find the nipples when they're suckling. Josh, I think that's a stretch, but nothing's impossible. And then Pass and Debbie, or Pass, I think you said to reflect heat, or Debbie, you said to reflect heat, I forget exactly which. I think that's possibly one of the good reasons, in order to reflect heat off the ground that might hurt them, or that might otherwise burn them. Remember, they do live in very desert conditions in some areas, but it doesn't get that hot here that they should necessarily need that. But that's, I think, the best explanation I've heard. And then Pass, you reckon, maybe so that it blends in with the sky. Well, Pass, if most of their threat came from dwarf mongoose, I would absolutely agree with you. But because I don't think they're particularly threatened from below, I'm not sure that that's true. That said, let's think about that. Maybe when they're up in trees, that color does blend with the sky. I suppose it would, absolutely. Remember, they don't go into trees though unless they've actually killed something. So I don't think that's the reason, but nothing is impossible. There must be a reason though for why they are white underneath there. One of the other possible reasons, and thank you for your answers, I really do appreciate them, and I find it so interesting listening to the different debates, because nobody truly knows the answers to half these questions. So it's really nice to have a conversation and debate about it. One of the reasons also could be that it's expensive for the animal to make that golden, beautiful leopard color that it has on the back, and maybe it just doesn't kind of warrant the extra energy expenditure, and so they just leave those that bleached and black fur on the bottom. The other thing is, what we must remember, and this applies to the impalas discussion that we had, and the discussion that we're having here, and of course the discussion of why zebras are black and white, when black and white to people with, or animals with eyes like ours, are extremely obvious colors, black and white are. But remember, most animals do not have eyes like ours do. They see in monotones or in few tones. So, I mean, in simple terms, they see in black and white, if you like. They don't see color like we do, and so I think that you'll find there's quite a lot that we see as obvious out here is not obvious to various other animals. So for the impala, for example, I reckon perhaps that brown color of theirs looks unobvious to their major predators, which would be lions and leopards like young Madiba here, and of course wild dog and cheetah. All the major predators will try and eat impala, so maybe that's got one of the reasons. And then maybe this leopard is black and white underneath because when they move through the grass, and maybe when they lie in the grass, maybe it isn't that obvious to somebody or something that only sees in black and white. Who knows? I really don't know. But thank you for your answers. You can hear some arrow-marked babblers calling in the background. He's looked up to listen to them. Obviously an ornithological leopard, this. It's very peaceful out here tonight. There are a couple of doves calling. But otherwise there's really not a lot of noise at all going on around here. Oh, you seen something? The scale of this sighting, this is massive action. Oh, there we go. What you got, boy? He's seen something that he would either like to eat or that wants to eat him. You may also hear some voices. We are just next to the airstrip, which is being reconditioned, and so he may have just heard those, but they're off to his right-hand side. One of the other reasons he'll sit on a termite mound, of course, is that it offers him an excellent vantage point. He can see what's coming. Look at the incredible scapula that he's got. The scapula, the two shoulder bones there. And they are just, they're big, and they support an enormously powerful set of shoulder muscles that will form the mainstay of his sort of attack weapons when he does actually kill something large. When he's a big male, he will be fully capable of killing animals much larger than himself. Oh, shame. He's absolutely exhausted after sitting up. I think his movements are severely constrained by the lack of energy that he feels because it's so expensive for him to digest all of the meat that he eats. So I've been working for Wild Earth now for since the 20th of May, June, July, August. Oh, jeepers, it's it's over 3 months now. I'm a veteran. And a nice question about why or how much Madiba's eyes have changed since I met him. Well, his eyes were pretty blue when I met him, and they're now pretty green, standard adult leopard color. So they have changed quite a lot. Quite a large change. They're born with blue eyes, of course, and some of them maintain those blue eyes forever, and some of them don't. Most don't. Now we had a comment about, Josh, you said that perhaps they're white on the belly because it'll help the cubs to find the nipples. I don't think that's the case, but what you do see there, Josh, is the white on the back tip of the tail, and that absolutely has a function that allows them to follow each other when they need to through thick bush. He obviously won't ever be feeding cubs, not unless he's a major biological anomaly, and that tail also serves to stop birds alarm calling. It's an amazing adaptation they have. When they're walking through the bush and birds start alarm calling, they flick that tail up, and it does seem to calm the birds down for some reason. I don't know why, how, what the mechanism is, but it does seem to calm them down, especially birds like rattling cisticolas, which tend to make a huge noise when a leopard walks past them. I think we might just try and reposition. Yes, Andre? We'll just try to see if we can't get around the other side of him, just for a little another different view. I do so enjoy just sitting with this fellow. And you've got to be so patient around cats, of course, because they do so little. But the more time you spend with them, of course, the more the chance of seeing some sort of anomaly in behavior that nobody's ever seen before. Let's go around this side of him. And just as a sort of recap, for those of you who perhaps don't know, oh, look at that, Andre, just film this little thing here if you don't mind. Look, everybody. It's the first wisteria flower. Isn't that lovely? There are a few of them on this tree. Beautiful tree wisteria flowers just coming into bloom. Bolusanthus speciosus. Say that, Chandre, after you've had a big night out. Won't be easy. Bolusanthus speciosus. Ta-ta-ta. Lovely purple flowers. It's not related to the wisteria creepers of northern climes. I think it's just called a tree wisteria because the flowers are very similar. Isn't that nice? Love seeing the first flowers. I'm just watching my inimitable cameraman who's trying to get us the best angle. Is this alright? You happy here? You may speak, Chandra. I'll give you permission. There you can see his eyes. They're not blue at all anymore. Maybe a little tinge of blue, but not much. Do wonder where his mother's gone. She might be quite close by, you know. Lying up in the drainage line. She's not famed for her tolerance of young. So she might just be nearby. Now, just in case you've just joined us, or perhaps you've been hiding under a rock, let me just give you a quick recap as to what's been happening in the life of this magnificent young leopard. He's forming a huge part of the narrative that we're not creating, is being created for us at Wild Earth. And he's 1 year old, as I say, so that makes him born exactly a year ago. But he's had a pretty tough time in the last little month, or the last 3 weeks or so. His mother has failed to raise 6 litters by this stage. I think it is 5 or 6 litters. Anyway, she's 9 years old, and that's unusual. She's either been very unlucky, or there's something else amiss. And I tend towards the latter. Scott definitely tends towards the former. He just thinks she's been very unlucky. And we're in the process of gathering information as to why she's lost all those litters earlier on. Now, hyenas definitely have played a part in it. Male leopards have definitely played a part. But he is a year old. Now, the normal birthing interval for a female leopard is about 18 months to 3 years. Now, she has just mated again with 2 males. And that means that if she falls pregnant now, will have a new cub or new cubs by the time that Sindile or Madiba is 15 months old. Now that is very early, and especially as he's a male. Some of the females go independent at this age. Males in fact, almost unheard of that they should go independent at this age. That said, while she was mating for 8 or 9 days, he spent completely alone in a 2-hectare area, so in about 4.5 to 5 acres, he spent on his own, and he actually did an incredible job. We think he killed a steenbok, he definitely killed a few francolins, he never looked thin, and he always looked okay, and we wondered if she'd ever come back and fetch him, and she did. She brought him here. She obviously fed him last night, and so it's really an interesting story, and interesting to see what's going to happen with this young fellow. Tired young fellow, should I say. Yeah, I think he's definitely looking around a lot because he's seeing, or he's hearing, the activity on the airstrip just nearby. Anyway, everybody, I'm more than happy to sit with him for the rest of the day, but perhaps you would like us to try and find something else. So let's have a little bit of a poll on Twitter. Those who say I should stay and those who say I should go. Wrong channel. And let's decide from there. I'm more than happy to sit with him for the rest of the day. But I'm also more than happy to go and look for something else if you'd like to. Oh, look at him, he's just such a magnificent fellow. Exercises now, very important of course, to keep the abs flat and working. Well done, Sindile. Jean-Andre was doing the same thing yesterday, as was I. Not quite as effectively as Sindile is, but we're older than him. That is a remarkable picture. We had a question today, and I think I did answer it earlier on, about how many leopards and lions there are left in this area and around here. And of course the answer is we don't know how many leopards there are. Leopards are very difficult to count because unless you see them all the time, they're so secretive that it becomes really difficult. And so while we know how many there are on the Sabi Sands, there are probably about 90 or so, we don't know how many there are in the Kruger National Park, but I think there's an extremely healthy population of them. They're brilliant generalists. An interesting question from Ramey, which I've kind of touched on, but I haven't perhaps answered, and I think that's because I don't really know why or how to answer this question. You want to know why Shadow is not around him, especially after they've just eaten. Why has she left him on his own? I don't know, Ramey. I have a suspicion that she has a biological anomaly in her. I think she came into estrus too early, and I suspect that that might have something to do with why she lost her previous litters of cubs. Yes, I'm sure luck played a part in it, but definitely she came into estrus very early, and I don't think she has a high tolerance of youngsters, and she wouldn't if she's just come into estrus. Her body will be telling her that this little fellow needs to make his own way in the world eventually. Although it's seemingly too soon for that to be happening. So Ramey, yeah, I can only think that she's just not that tolerant of him. You know, she also, though, is a brilliant hunter, and she may have decided that she needs to go off and catch something else. It's not unheard of for her to place kills in trees, and it's a quite common leopard behavior that they will stash different kills in different trees and keep a pantry, basically. Right, so we're going to stay right here with young Sindila. I believe the general consensus is that we should lurk around with him, and I'm more than happy to do that. But while he's doing nothing, let's pop across to Scott and the lions and see what's happening there, and I'll see you just a little bit later.
Welcome back, everyone. And not much has changed here with the Nkuhuma Pride. They are still fast asleep, and no more prey have come into this general area. But we're sitting patiently, and I'm hopeful that we are going to get some action tonight. So fear not. I think in these windy conditions, I think we're going to get lucky, possibly after dark. But the fact that they have moved during the day quite some distance means that I think they are inclined to want to move more, and hopefully earlier on. I'm sure you've been having a great time with James and Madiba, and what an afternoon it is. So many big cats. It's been a while since we got lucky. We've had some tough going over the last few days, but at least today we are back on track and have some great sightings lined up for you. It's not uncommon for cats to spend the majority of their day asleep. 16 to 20 hours is their average amounts of sleep that they will have. So the fact that we did get to see them active earlier, especially during the daylight hours, was a real bonus. And really fortunate that we got to find them just before that moment of action unfolded. Because had we arrived a few minutes later, this is all we would have been seeing. The youngest lioness within this pride is looking really comfortable with its head perched on a bigger lioness's back. And I considerably more spread out than they were this morning. This morning they were all clumped right up together next to one another. And I always wonder when I do see lions sleeping why they don't kind of position themselves more spread out. If they were to fan themselves out, they would set up a natural ambush. Whereas like this, if anything were to stumble upon them, they're all so kind of close together that it would be difficult for them to encompass their prey. Oh, wow. Junior's just got up and shook his head, and maybe there was a flea that was bothering him behind that ear. I see. He may have just caught the end of him with his paw up against that ear. And then straight back to sleep. I wonder what's going to happen with him. He is in a very precarious scenario. He has come of age and should technically be out on his own now. And that, coupled with the fact that the Birmingham Coalition is in town, means that he could very well come unstuck if they get a hold of him on their rampage. Thankfully though, 4 of them are very far to the east of us, and the other one is much further to the north. Now, I believe we got a report from one of the viewers that apparently the missing lioness of this pride has been mating with or at least one of the Matimba males, and that certainly could be the case. Haven't heard anything. We've got a WhatsApp group where every guide in the Sabi Sands will send updates mainly on the lion movements, but also leopard to a degree, and didn't get any updates that they were seen mating this morning. So I'm not sure how credible that is, and it certainly could be true, but there's no confirmation of that. I've tried to get a hold of Craig, one of the other guys who's got access to other properties where we can't go, and can't get through to him, so not too sure, but maybe that is the case, and I hope it is the case. Although if it is, there's a strong chance if she does give birth to those cubs, if it's a successful mating, in 3 months' time they are just going to be killed by the Birmingham males as soon as they come across them, because they will know that they did not father those cubs. So even though she may be safe, the mating will probably not work out being beneficial for anyone in the end, because the Matimba males, like I say, are on a rampage, and they will kill any cubs that they did not father. No different to any of the other big cats out here. Now, while I've got you here, off the topic, that's something that may interest you. Yesterday we saw a scorpion early in the morning, and also got to see one yesterday evening. This was my little scorpion torch, which is a UV torch. It puts a kind of blue light. It's not very powerful, but it's a UV light. And if this was a real scorpion and I was shining on it, it would fluoresce a bright color like a glow-in-the-dark toy. Anyway, this is the scorpion that we got to see yesterday, the Opisthothalamus glabifrons. Seriously long name, and that was the one VM spotted whilst burrowing, sorting out its burrow. And you'll notice how large the pincers are, like that of a lobster or a crab, and that's a good indicator that it's not highly venomous. I will show you a highly venomous scorpion after this, so you've got an idea. Interestingly, it's eating a millipede. We'll start seeing lots of them during the summer months, but they carry cyanide within their body, and basically the only other animal that will feed on millipedes are civets. So that's one of the other few animals, along with the scorpion, that can feed on these toxic millipedes, and this often is one of the scorpion's main prey, and you'll very often see the rings, the individual ringlets that make up the body of the millipede outside scorpion burrows as they do their housekeeping and put all their old food waste outside. And then I'm just going to page over to the scorpion that we saw up in a tree last night. You didn't get a good view of it, but that one you did see the Pistocanthus asper. And interestingly enough, this picture must have been taken, well, here we go, in northern Natal, which is not where we are. It's quite far south of us, probably a couple of 100 kilometers south of where we are. And the coloration of the scorpions in that area are different here, even though the same one occurs here, it is a very different color. Then I'm going to ask Brian just to pan across to the left to show you this scorpion here. Now look at how thin these pincers are. They're almost as thin as the legs, and not very powerful and robust. And a scorpion that carries these very thin pincers that you need to be careful of, because the danger from them comes from the back end, a very big tail. So now you've got a good idea of the differences in pincers and how you can use them to determine how venomous the scorpion could be. We get lots of different scorpions in this area. We actually found another one by our campfire last night, which was the Europlectes vittatus. Very small scorpion, but despite its size, it is quite venomous, so you don't want to be stung by one of these. And Jandre, one of the cameramen, spotted this one crawling around the fireplace. And they occupy all different habitats, and there are many different types in this area, hopefully a lot of which we'll be able to show you over the coming months. There are tricky customers though, and I'm hoping we're going to be able to show you some more with this UV torch, because it really is wonderful to see them. One thing I could be able to, I think there is a picture of one of them fluorescing, I just don't know where it is. So maybe take a closer look at the lion again while I try and find it.